Hello and welcome to the Granstrom podcast, Super Soul Model Series, where I help you tune and tap in to your natural state of well-being. In this episode, I'm going to share with you 5 things high achievers do on a regular basis. And if you're wanting to start attracting some amazing results, here are some of the traits that high achievers do. I noticed that in my clients, they've got these certain habits and traits that they do and that they have, and they can all be learned when you apply them. Everything can be learned. And I'm excited to share this with you because I'm going to share with you some of the things they do and some of the things that they do behind the scenes as well. So I'm going to break this up into 2 parts, and the second part is more or less the bonus section. So I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope it enlightens you and gives you some clarity about some of the things that you can do so you can start living the life that you really, really want with some of the practical tools, strategies, and mindset that will shift you from where you are to where you want to be. There is a blueprint that people have who are operating at high levels. And if you could take that blueprint and put it over your life and you start turning up as that person, that too, blueprint will come alive for you. I've noticed it in my own experience, but I want to see it in your experience. Success takes time. Anything of great value takes time. And it's so interesting learning from people who are high achievers about what they do, but also what drives them. So here are some of the 5 things high achievers do on a regular basis. First thing that high achievers do is they have goals. They set goals and then they review those goals. And reviewing those goals helps them monitor how well they're doing, monitors their progress. Because with progress comes confidence, and then you can see that the journey in itself is heading towards a satisfying conclusion, because you can't have a successful ending or conclusion or reach your goal without having a satisfying journey of seeing progress along the way. This is one of the main traits, the first traits that high achievers have, because they, number 1, have a vision, and then number 2, want to work towards it so it comes alive. And they are very open for it being a long-term goal as well, because they see the value in the long term rather than just quick solutions. Because quick solutions may not be satisfying, but long-term gain nets very, very large results. And you're going to think about it in terms of investing. Investing for the long term, you're going to see very, very large lucrative returns in the long run than you would do in the short term. One of my clients had a goal to really reduce the amount of alcohol he was taking in, because it always seemed that whenever they go out, they would always be celebrating drinking. But he felt that he was becoming a bit of a slave to drinking and to alcohol. Whilst he wanted to enjoy it, it felt like that was something that they always did to celebrate. And whether it's the most amazing bottle of wine or the most amazing bottle of champagne, whilst that might seem elegant, it also felt like that's just what we do. And so my client was very specific to say, I would like to release the need to have that in my life always, because I don't like the way I feel the day afterwards. I don't like the way my body looks by constantly having that in my life every single weekend. So my client was very, very specific, and he thought it'd probably take about 18 months to do to be able to get to this level of not needing it. Whilst it was challenging for my client, he managed to do it in 14 months. Until about 2 months ago, we had a conversation and he was saying to me, I managed to say no and not even feel bad that I could say no. And that was such a game changer for me, because some of the things that we are so used to, so ingrained within our society, within our families, even within our businesses, we get so used to things being a certain way. And so when someone does something differently, that really sort of disturbs the nest, so to speak, and people are a bit startled. It was a bit like me when I gave up drinking some 20 years ago. It was very unheard of to be able to become sober at the age of 28. But I decided that that would be a good idea for me, and so I followed through. And whatever your goal is, business, health, making a certain amount of money, be specific. Have a goal. Work towards it every day, measure it to see if you're on the journey. And if you're taking the right action, you know you will feel confident in the progress of that journey. And don't be afraid to set really long-term goals. So 5-year goals, you can really surprise yourself. But in 1 year, we often tend to overestimate. So high achievers really have like 5-year plans about achieving something really big. So try and fit in that long-term category and notice that time is your greatest asset. And number 2, another thing that high achievers do is that they are continuously learning. What I love particularly about high achievers is that they recognize they don't know it all, but they just happen to know a lot in their chosen field, and that I find absolutely fascinating. So they're humble enough to be able to recognize what it takes to become an expert in one area, and they're willing to employ the services of another to be able to learn more about the areas that they're interested in. That I find absolutely fascinating. And if you really want to succeed big, then you have to recognize you've got to be an expert in at least one area, and this is something that these men and women all do. The third thing high achievers all do is they're very, very good with their time management. Time management is essential because time is the greatest asset that we have as human beings, and we're either using it wisely or we're wasting it. And high achievers recognize the value of their time. I recall reading with Richard Branson that he had 10-minute meetings, and that's what I found with high achievers. They block their time out with their businesses in 10 to 20-minute blocks so that they get to satisfying conclusions in the meetings. And that is why time management is so important, so that they can use the rest of their time on making sure that other areas of their life are in balance. Because when you are managing high amounts of people, large capital, when you're managing a family as well, when you're managing your own wellness, there's so many moving parts. So it's so important that you utilize your time wisely. So time management is such a huge part of becoming a high achiever. So how do you spend your time? Where are you spending your time? And who are you spending your time with? Because as Jim Rohn said, the 5 people that you spend your time with is going to reflect in your income. So make sure that the people you spend your time with, whether in business or in your relationships, are all moving in a direction that is going to be wholesome to you and that's going to fill you up. Because if you start to spend time with people who are not going in a direction that you want to go, what's actually happening is that's taking your energy away and sapping it from you. So become a master of your time and who you spend your time with, because you want to invest your time with people who care about you and you care about. Number 4, physical and mental well-being. This is my expertise. So physical and mental well-being plays such a big part in high achievers' lives. And if there is not a level of decent nutrition in their life, physical activity and mindfulness and things like meditation, what people find is that when you're at a high level, you get burnt out. So having a fantastic state of balance in terms of physicality and wellness, both for the body and for the mind, this plays such a huge part in being able to allow high achievers to remain at this high level. Otherwise, they get burnt out. And often I have clients who start moving in this direction because they've missed out on this number 4 quality. And so this is where I tend to step in terms of business, because people don't necessarily know how to manage and balance their lifestyle with their business success. But once you start to balance your well-being, your business success starts to thrive as well, because you've got more mental energy, you're more focused, your body's in better condition, you're eating better, which means you've got greater energy and you're sleeping better. And then that creates this beautiful positive spiral. So managing and maintaining a level of mental fitness and physical fitness combined with nutrition and exercise and mindfulness is paramount to high achievers being able to stay at that high level. So this is so important on a regular basis. And I even recall thinking about people like Mark Wahlberg, who has an interesting story. He gets up at 3 o'clock to work out, and he prays, and then he works out, and then he's ready to start his day, whether he's on a set or working with his family. But that's his allotted time to spend time on his physical and mental well-being and his soul's well-being as well. Now, not everybody's going to get up at 3 o'clock, but that's how Mark Wahlberg likes to roll, and that's his discipline. And so people who are high achievers go to great lengths to be able to utilize the time that they have in the best possible way. So whatever works for you, build that ritual. This is what I find with my clients. They all need to add this ritual and make sure it stays in their life so they maintain a high level of equilibrium and energy. Number 5, networking and relationships building. The high achievers that I've met and the high achievers that I've studied, they all recognize the power of a good network. They recognize that collaboration is such a huge part in success and well-being, and making a lot of money and enjoying great success and high achievement is done through helping people and collaborating with others. And when we have a wonderful network of people, we're able to do incredible things together. And high achievers recognize that, and they recognize it's not all by themselves that they manage to achieve their success. It's done by helping others and allowing others to help them. So they recognize the power of good people in their life, and they recognize the power of relationship building, and look to build relationships with other people on that same level. So if you are really wanting to become better at what you do, if you're wanting to achieve high levels of success in what you're doing, then it's absolutely essential you build a foundation of network of good people in your life, because you're going to find people on your way up and you're going to find people on your way down. And if you're not humble enough to recognize that there is this wave of success that goes up and down, then you will fall flat, because we need each other. And there's the poem that John Donne wrote, which is "No man is an island." And when we recognize that we can't do things alone, but we can work together as a team, then we're going to be able to collaborate and create a universal win-win. High achievers just understand the importance of a strong professional network. So if you're constantly looking to maintain good relationships, both personally and professionally, you're going to find that your relationships will grow and opportunities will also find you, because you're nurturing those relationships. So this is part B, the less obvious traits of high achievers. And the first one is mental rehearsal and visualization. Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about visualization, and he talks about coming from the end and feeling the feeling. In fact, if you've heard about the law of attraction or several of my other episodes, I always talk about the law of attraction and manifestation. But high achievers really do this, and the best people who constantly come back to this are the athletes, because they can actually see them lifting the trophy. Novak Djokovic at the Wimbledon final, or any final that he's won, has always referred back to that time when he was 7 years old, building a paper mache at home, saying, "This is my Wimbledon cup," that as he was playing and pretending that he was lifting the Wimbledon trophy. So when he eventually lifted that Wimbledon trophy several years later, remember, going back to that first trait, which was long-term goals, that's exactly what he managed to do. And one has to use the power of the mind to be able to think, to feel, and then what that does is you start to work on those goals. Then you're building confidence and you're seeing progress. All high achievers tend to have the vision or the blueprint in the mind. LeBron James talks about the blueprint for winning the NBA Finals when he was at Miami Heat before he took it to Cleveland, before taking it to LA. He was always talking about the blueprint of what it takes to be able to win the NBA Finals. So this is using visual mental rehearsal whilst doing the work, whilst moving your feet, whilst taking the day-to-day actions to move in the direction of your own dreams and goals. So the second less obvious habit is embracing failure and receiving feedback. So instead of feeling failure, high achievers recognize that the failure is the feedback. And that feedback gives you the idea, the memory, and the feeling of what you did that wasn't successful, and yet you dust that off and go again. I recall hearing a real estate developer in London a few years ago who bought a property and it cost them about 1.5 million, and the deal was supposed to be shared on renovating a property with somebody else, and yet the deal that they were supposed to go through with the other partner fell through and they became bankrupt, which meant they lost all their money that they invested, which was the 1.5. So from having that failure and that property, they were able, within about 2 or 3 years, were able to come back and do another deal, and that was all because of that lesson that they had. So whatever lessons that you had, whether it's financial, physical, relationships, whatever it may be, just recognize that failure is just feedback that what you were doing wasn't correct in that moment, and that you can dust yourself off and go again. And yes, it might take a year or 2 or 3 or 4 before you come back, but you can come back stronger with the lesson and intact with your dignity at a later date. Number 3, prioritizing rest and recovery. High achievers recognize that it's so important to sleep well, to rest well, to take vacations so that you can come back stronger, more invigorated by life, and have more creative ideas. Most people think high achievers are constantly working and working hard. That's not actually true. They recognize the power of rest, because in rest comes creative ideas. When you're resting or when you're on vacation, you get an idea because you're not in this heavy state of constantly trying to find solutions to problems. You're in this relaxed state. And the more you're in a relaxed state, high achievers recognize the power of that relaxed state and how good it is for their health, for their mind to be free to receive creative ideas so that they can put those ideas to work. So things like sleep, naps, vacations are so powerful. Winston Churchill swore by the nap. Maggie Thatcher used to swear by the nap. The Spanish swear by having siestas. It's absolutely essential. Little naps and power naps are scientifically proven to help the brain reset and help you produce the chemicals that allows you to be more relaxed and more empowered. Even before I did this episode that I'm recording right now, I had a 20-minute power nap, and so I felt fresh with the ideas that I'm sharing with you on this episode. So if you want to enjoy great high levels of productivity, make sure you're prioritizing your rest and recovery every single day. Number 4, deep work and focused sessions. High achievers recognize the power of intense focus, and high achievers are really single-minded when it comes to their work. And this is really fascinating because they're single-minded of purpose, and this means that they just have one thing that they're focused on and they give it their undivided attention, and that is considered genius because of their ability to focus for a prolonged period of time on something that's important to them. So to become focused requires skill, single-mindedness of purpose, and a dedication to fulfilling the task at hand. Bruce Lee used to talk about becoming single-minded, and he managed to have these short bursts of intense power that he was using through his kicks and punches. But businessmen and women and entrepreneurs are also using that intense focus to be able to complete the task at hand. So high achievers have this habit of being single-minded. You know, when I look at my own experience, when I go to the gym, I've got a 20 to 30 minute intense workout that I do because I'm absolutely single-minded when I do my workouts. And I've noticed that my workouts and how I feel in my body, I feel super energized, and I don't need to speak to anybody whilst I'm doing that workout unless I'm working out with somebody. But I tend to work out mostly by myself unless I'm in a class. And I'm able to enjoy that 20 to 30 minutes and keep my body in fantastic shape because of that single-mindedness. And I apply the same technique to my work, to my business, to my finances, to my relationships. So I'm utterly present in what I'm doing. That's taken a long time to be able to get to that, but that's been the power of focus, which I've developed through habits such as meditation, which helps you become single-minded. So this is such a very powerful, less obvious habit of high achievers. So to become single-minded is one of the most incredible things you can do, because it feels like a drug when you're single-minded because you're so present. And when you're present, it's almost as if time flies by. And the fifth less obvious habit of a high achiever is maintaining a growth mindset. High achievers believe that their abilities and intelligence can be developed over time through effort and learning. This mindset is really just all about seeking out new opportunities, opportunities for expansion, opportunities for growth, opportunities for improvement, whilst pushing their own boundaries to think what's actually possible. If you ever look at any entrepreneurs who are bringing new things into the world, they are trying to push their own boundaries to see what's actually possible, whilst many of the world are saying, no, that's not possible. And one of the best examples of this is Thomas Edison, who invented the light bulb after about 10,000 times. He just kept on going, believing that the light bulb would eventually work. And even though people criticized him and said, you took 10,000 times to get that right, he says, but I found 9,999 ways that it didn't work. So these are the traits of high achievers and how you could potentially incorporate some of these into your own life experience. Remember, your life is your own and it's up to you how you live it. Your legacy will be whatever you choose it to be. But in order to succeed in the way that is fulfilling to you, not in the eyes of the world, but in the way that's fulfilling to you, the best thing you've always got to remember is to maintain meaningful relationships and have meaningful work. Because unless you have those two things, all the money in the world won't be satisfying. But maintaining meaningful relationships and having meaningful work will give you a purpose which will help you get up every day and work towards something that brings you joy. Because real success is measured by the joy you're feeling, not by the amount of money that you're making. And whilst money is super important, the joy that you feel will be radiating out into the world. I hope this episode has been super helpful for you. Thank you, as always, for supporting the show. Your support of the show really allows me to keep bringing you top quality content. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing, because your subscription really helps with the algorithm of this podcast as well. Thanks as always, and until the next episode, I wish you a wonderful week ahead, and green lights all the way.